and today's topic is going to be pretty interesting, and also we got to be very careful because it's the goal of everybody's. I know that somebody can puzzle how this topic is going to be relevant to myself, depending on the belief system. But even though this seems irrelevant for someone who does not believe in nibbana, but this could be something pretty profound uh, you know uh, psychological concept. So it does not only limit anyone to think nibbana from a next life perspective. It's a deep, profound concept in terms of liberation. So the topic is going to be, what do we get wrong about nirvana? Joining with me, Professor Tilak Kariyawasam, the Dean of Graduate School at International Buddhist College, Thailand. I cordially welcome him back to the discussion. And before we move on to the discussion, I would like to give a kind of an introduction to our viewers about this topic, so that you know uh, we could sort of discuss with this background in mind. So nibbana is the Pali word, while nirvana is Sanskrit word, and many of you know nirvana, because it's in the dictionary too, in most of the English dictionaries too. Nirvana basically is the extinction of three fires: lobha, dosa, and moha. And when someone extinguish the fires of lobha, dosa, moha, or raga, dosa, moha, that person releases from the cycle of birth. So that's the main thing. Basically, I would say end of psychophysical personality, uh, more from a psychological perspective. But I think a lot of people only think the effect of this extinguishing, that's called nibbana, nibbuti, extinguishing or blowing out. What about the act, nibbana? What's the act of nibbana? We have to talk about that as well. What happens? What someone has to do in terms of nirvana? And then what happens after someone attains nibbana? So act and effect, both same at the end, but just to give you kind of something to think about. And we know that in the Buddhist teachings, nibbana is twofold: sopadisesa nibbana and anupadisesa nibbana. Now, when someone this is more from the Theravada background perspective. Sopadisesa nibbana means when someone attains nibbana, before nobody can attain nibbana after die. So when that person is alive, that person attains nibbana by you know uh, eliminating three fires. So that person attains the first type of nibbana called sopadisesa nibbana. Nibbana uh, with residue, uh, because still that person maintains a body. And the nibbana completes when that person dies. We call it anupadisesa. So then that person leaves the body. So in that way, in Theravada, there are two types of nibbana or nirvana: sopadisesa and anupadisesa. And I will ask from Professor after this question introduction what he understands this nibbana from a Mahayana perspective too, because he is a scholar about Buddhology and Bodhisattva philosophy. So he may have a lot to discuss with us. So it's up to him. And then we know, in basically in Theravada, we say the highest liberation is nibbana, and in the Mahayana we know the highest liberation is Buddhahood, becoming a Buddha. And when we look into the etymology of the word nibbana, we know this word called nirvana is not, uh, the word is not, a creation from the Buddhist background. It's pre-Buddhist. Uh, Now, if you take a look at of Upanishad and more from the Shramanic movements, we see the Nirvana word, but there is something innovative in the Buddhist teachings. The word Nirvana has not been used by those people, pre-Buddhist people, in the way how the Buddhism deals with this term, because Buddha deals with nirvana from a soteriological point, liberation point of view. So it's kind of you know different when we look at the nirvana term in the pre-Buddhist philosophies. But this concept was more or less discussed in Jain, Ajivakas, and Hindu traditions. I hope that the professor will delineate a little bit about that thing too. And also, we know in the pre-Buddhist philosophies, religions, moksha, especially in Hinduism, moksha was a big thing, target, goal, uh, and another word called vimoksha, moksha and vimoksha, the same meaning. But uh, we find an equivalent term in Pali. We call it vimukti. So vimoksha seems going pretty closely with vimukti, and we know vimukti magga, visuddhi magga. So it looks to us that it's kind of going on the same path. But there should be a difference. That's why in the Theravada Buddhist teachings we find there are two vimuktis in the Theravada Buddhism. So we're going to actually connect that to the vimukti concept, because we've been talking moksha as well. Cheto vimukti and panya vimukti. Cheto vimukti means freedom from mind, and panya vimukti is freedom through understanding. When cheto vimukti becomes permanent, only with the attainment of panya vimukti is possible. That means when you free your mind, then you can free you from true understanding. So it looks like vimukti is not new to the Buddhist teachings. And also, we know that the concept of you know nibbana or nirvana is pretty much in the discussion of you know scholars who study the language, reality and language. That's where we talk about nirvana. The state of nirvana is ineffable. You can use language to describe nibbana. So there is this ineffability of the word or state of nibbana, uh, because in the sutta teachings we know that all the words that have been used to talk about nibbana, they are not positive words. They are positive not in terms of psychology, I mean as a word. Mostly they are negative connotative words. I would say asankata, appanihita, undone, unconditioned. So probably someone may come up with the thought that why they all given in these negative terms. So then what we have to say is that nirvana, the experience of nirvana, is ineffable. It doesn't, because it's ineffable, it doesn't say there's nothing. There's something differently we have to see. But the nibbana from the normal language is ineffable. So Professor Kariyawasam, let's get to the conversation now. As I've been explaining, that nirvana is the end of psychophysical personality of any being, and you know that basically it's about extinction of the three fires, raga, dosa, moha, and there are different types of nirvana, and both Theravada and Mahayana discuss what is nibbana and etymology, and we find some equivalent words. Now, for example, I would say like deluded beings, like people who haven't attained nibbana, they say nibbana and sansara as the counterpart. So nibbana and sansara seem going pretty much in line. So what do you have to say? How do you understand what is nibbana, and do you see any types of nibbana, uh, both in Theravada and Mahayana? And do you have something to add to etymology as well as moksha vimukti? Also, why the experience of nibbana is ineffable? Why is it given like being ineffable? So what you have to share with us?
Okay. Now, when we talk about this Nibbana, of course, this is, as it has been mentioned, that ineffable, and it is a bit of a subject. It is a little bit difficult subject, in fact. And this Nibbana, of course, in Buddhism is really mentioned that the this is the highest bliss. The Pali definition has been given that Nibbanam Paramam Sukham. That is the meaning of highest bliss as well as highest happiness. You can say that this is the Nibbana. Nibbana is highest happiness and highest bliss. Why it is actually called it like that, highest happiness? And this is, of course, it's mentioned as just Venerable talk about the three vicious mentalities, elimination of three vicious mentalities, that is the Lobha, Dosa, Moha, or Raga, Dosa, Moha. And these three, elimination of these three, really mention about this the as the for the Nibbana, and especially here it is Raga Kyo Nibbana. Normally, one kind of definition is elimination of Raga. Raga always has been mentioned in Buddhism, explained in Buddhism as something which is really burning ourselves. Raga is in our mind, then raga, when it is really arises, and it burns ourselves. And that is why the blowing out of this fire, the burning is with the fire, so the blowing out of this fire is the Nibbana. That is the meaning of the Nibbana, in fact. Anyway, that is, again, that is not only raga, but also dosa. Raga means lust, and dosa, hatredness, and moha, delusion. All these three vicious mentalities, and the elimination of these mentalities are called the Nibbana. And this Nibbana, of course, is ineffable because of it is not the problem of Nibbana, but it is problem of our language. That is why. Because uh, our language, of course, is a kind of a conventional language that we use. That means, and we have made our language for our day-to-day usage, and those are limited words. So the Nibbana is highly uh, in it is just to talk about in that sense that it is a kind of we can say that it is a philosophical as well as a very deep uh, kind of a inner mentality kind of way that and it really realizes. So then this to explain this, these our words are not really enough. So we have the language problem. uh, so that is why it says that it is ineffable, so then given only in negative terms. That is how it used to explain negative terms. When it is explained in negative terms, it is very good, because if it is explained in positive terms, uh, normally the people may take it in a wrong way. That is why. And again, in the Theravada, of course, it is taken the arhat, attaining into arhat is Nibbana, and in Mahayana, it is, of course, is attaining into enlightenment by the Bodhisattva. That is the Nibbana that has been mentioned.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the professor was talking about how this word called Nibbana or Nirvana, can be translated, and how the state of mind of Nibbana, when someone attains Nibbana, how the state of mind becomes ineffable, and why it's ineffable, because that kind of a state of mind cannot be described, explained by the normal language we know. I know that in our normal language, even we can't sometimes feel that we feel sometimes that we are not properly communicating because people get misunderstood. Maybe the language is not that rich enough to talk about even the normal concept at some points. So that, what about Nibbana? So it's pretty clear. Professor, the next thing I'm going to be a little, giving some insights is this atta and anatta, self and not self. You know, it's a big concept in the pre-Buddhist philosophies. I don't want to name what the philosophies were. And we know that most of the pre-Buddhist philosophies and religions, they base their fundamental philosophy on a self, kind of a traversing self, which is not dying. So the self, uh, just the body dies, the self travels. But in the Buddhist teachings, Buddha says no, there is no self travels. But Buddha talks about clearly in many of the suttas that there are two versions of uh, self. So, sorry, the two versions of the truth. And one version is Samuti Satcha, conventional truth, where the other one is ultimate truth. So I think Atta is not new to these two truths. Atta is not an exception. So Atta has also need to be put into these two truths. That may be why I understand in Dhammapada, many other places Buddha talks about uh, we have to take care of Atta, but in a different context. Uh, because if you don't take care of Atta, that means you don't understand the suffering of the samsara, you don't do good things, you don't meditate, you don't, etc., etc. So it looks like Atta has been explained by the Buddha in a different context, but not in the way how the pre-Buddhist philosophies have been discussing, Atta to be something in the liberation. When it comes to Nibbana, Atta is something we have to talk about, because we know that when someone wants to go gradually into Nibbana, one has to start from Sotapanna, Saddhanusari, Dhammanusari, then Sotapanna, then Sakadagami, then Anagami, and then become an Arahant, where that person completes a Nibbana. So passes a Nibbana. So I also understand that in the first three attainments, one has to take Nibbana as an object of contemplation. So this is, I want to attain Nibbana, but still I'm working on what I have to eliminate with Sotapanna. Let's say when you are Sotapanna, you want to kind of like deal with the fetters or whatever the defilements with Sakadagami level. When you are Sakadagami, then if you are gradually going, then you have to deal with what is with Anagami. Then only you think about the Nibbana. So sort of kind of a self version can be seen in these three gradual attainments. And then we know anatta concept is really connected with Nibbana, because when you attain Nibbana, there's no person attaining Nibbana, but you are transforming yourself into a higher state of mind. In that, you can't say this was me, that was me, and I me myself mentality, because you have given up that mentality at the stage of Sakkaya Ditthi. So what and how you explain Nibbana with Atta and Anatta, self and not self concept? How do you understand this conventional Atta and the ultimate Anatta, versions, and how do you connect Anatta, this the biggest concept in the Buddhist teachings called Anatta philosophy, into Nibbana? So I think you have a lot of things to share with us, please.
Uh, this is, of course, is a somewhat controversial issue because some of them from the very beginning, of course, the very beginning means from the 3rd century BC, from that time, some Buddhist sects, Sammitiyas and Vajraputtakas, and these two Buddhist sects, and they accepted a personality theory, or what we call the person is existing. So that is the kind of way that has been explained, because sometimes even the Buddha also used uh, for himself as well as for others as a way of naming or talking about a person. But in Buddhism, normally it says that and there is no person, no other. That because if it is a person existing, that means the other is existing. That is what the Theravadins have given the interpretation, Puggaloti Atta Satto Jivo. If someone accepts a Puggala, Puggala means the person. So he is naturally accepting Atman, as well as he is naturally accepting there is a life as well as there is a being. So that is the Theravadins given that interpretation to refute to repel the Pujjalavadins personality issue. So this has been taken even nowadays also for discussion, because some of them really say that when someone attains into Nibbana, and that person has Atman, and that Atman is in the Nibbana as well. And but as Buddhism normally talks about everywhere, the Anatta doctrine. Normally it says Buddhism is Anatta doctrine. So the Buddhism talk about there is no person, no Atta, so then Anatta. So then it is normally explained that it is the Anatta, and then some other people, they really say in Nibbana there is Anatta. So what I really can say that these both the concept, Atta and Anatta, both of them are irrelevant for Buddhism. Talking about when Nirvana, when attaining into Nirvana, either Atta or Anatta is. So that is not really, it's not that way, because there is the Nirvana is free from Atta and Anatta both. That is what really say. And again, this Atta, of course, as mentioned in other religions, we know that it is in a different sense. But in Buddhism, Atta really talk about as a Pujjala. Because when someone accepts that there is a Pujjala is existing, person is existing, the Atta is existing. That is what the reason. But the really in Buddha's teaching, that has been rejected, because though Pujjala person is existing, Atta is not there. There is no person in a Pujjala.
Yeah. But I want to ask you, you can explain to us in your next answer, like you say that when someone attains nibbana, atta and anatta, they are irrelevant. They are not relevant. But the main problem is how can someone deal with these two before they attain nibbana, so they are with a self. So I think you can explain later in the after the question. So Professor Kariyawasam, now we come to a very interesting question. Like people, and we all know that Nibbana is the highest happiness, right? So then people think that if it is the highest happiness, then they think that this it is kind of higher than the normal type of happiness that they explain, they experience. So so the question is, if Nibbana, we know that in the Buddhist teachings, in many of the suttas, like in the Rata Vinita Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, uh, when it was Arahant Sariputta was explaining to Arahant Punamantani Putta that in Nibbana, when someone attains Nibbana, there is no happiness that one can feel. And then Arahant Punamantani Putta questions back, then is that a happiness? But Arahant Sariputta says that's the happiness. So in a happiness, in whatever an experience, if you feel nothing, especially in this case Nibbana, if there's no happiness at a level of feeling, that's the happiness. So that's the happiness. So the thing is, how can we understand Nibbana as a happiness at a point where it is not felt? That's one thing. If we can't feel it, then can we experience it? So what's the difference between feeling and experience when it comes to uh, Nibbana, happiness of Nibbana? The other question is, a lot of people, like in many cultures, like especially in Sri Lankan culture, we know at the end of any good karma, monks, nuns, and upasak upasikas, they all say, may I attain nibbana at the end of that ceremony. May I, with all these good karmas, may I be able to attain nibbana. So but looks like that some people like nibbana. uh, some people like nibbana, but in the teachings we see that we shouldn't like it, rather we desire it, and then do the do things that we need to do in attaining nibbana. So what do you think? Should people like nibbana, or should people desire nibbana? So because nibbana, if nibbana is the elimination of raga dosa moha, you can keep a liking, you can keep a like towards anything. So how can someone apply this liking, uh, apart from the raga concept towards nibbana? So you can first explain to us, um, how does someone think about self and not self before attaining nibbana, and then you can discuss happiness. How come there is a happiness that can be felt, especially with regard to nibbana? If it can be felt, then is that an experience? And finally, should we desire nibbana, should we like nibbana, Professor?
Now, the first one is, of course, is someone who really try to attain into Nibbana. Then at that time, there is a person, of course, is a person has to uh, do the struggle or the effort to attain into Nibbana. So at that time, there is a person is existing. Huh? So in that case, what we can say that, and if that person is taking as Atman, of course, it's a we can say that, and but I doubt about that to use that in Buddhism. Buddhism should not really, what I understand it, talk about that and talk any way that and there is Atman. Because I'm completely rejected about the Atman concept in Buddhism in any way or in anything, especially in within a person. But within a person, normally it's mentioned that can the person thinks about he is existing. Because I am thinking about I am. When I say I am, normally that he thinks that then he is existing. That is why. Normally, when someone calls someone's name and he goes and he answers for that because he thinks that it is calling himself. So that is the way that Atman really works it out there. And that is of course, but he is really entering into Nibbana, then all these things are really, these concepts have been eliminated. Otherwise, it is not the Nibbana. Nibbana means the elimination of all these, what we really talks about and so on, all these things, thoughts and these things completely elimination. So the other factor is that, and this uh, Nibbana, if it is really cannot, uh, it can experience, but it is not really feel it. That is why it says we cannot feel it. It is, the word has been, the Pali terms has been used for that. Avedaita sukha. That means the happiness which cannot feel. If any feelings can feel, that feelings will change. If it is changing, that cannot really uh, talks about as something very important, and it is very essential. So this feeling, of course, if anything can feel, that is going to change. That is why it's mentioned that feeling means in Pali word has been mentioned Vedana. Vedana is, the problem of Vedana has been mentioned that it changes. When it is changing, it is really not really a Sukha Vedana. Normally we called it happiness. Nibbana is the highest happiness. So if happiness is feeling, so that feeling changes. If it is changing, it is not becomes any more happiness. It is really becomes dukkha or suffering. That is how the explanation given in Buddhism. In that case, it is mentioned that Nibbana is avedayita. That means cannot feel it. That is why it's called the highest happiness. If it is anything can feel, that will not last long. So this is avedayita, cannot feel. So that is why it is everlasting happiness has been mentioned uh, in that sense, highest happiness. But the other thing is, the people have to they have, if the people, of course, and according to Buddhism, that every Buddhist highest goal is Nibbana. So they must achieve Nibbana. They must strive for Nibbana. So in that case, they have to have some kind of likeness for some kind of a wish to attain into Nibbana. But if anyone has a desire for Nibbana, this word really indicates something different. Because we say desire means, desire always goes to the lower side. So you cannot lower, you cannot make a lower for Nibbana. If it is going to make it like that, that is not really very good uh, as according to the Buddhist explanation of the way of Buddhism. So then you can have some kind of a wish to attain into Buddhism. That is, of course, is a way that anyone can attain into. So they must have that wish. So they must have that likeness for attaining into Nibbana.
Yeah, so it's pretty clear. But I want to ask another question that came out of your answer, but you can answer in your to this question after. The question is, now you said that we can desire because desire has some bad translations to be you know, kind of a karma attachment or loba. But then what should people do? Should people, what could be the best word for chanda, the translation? That's one thing you can answer. But now we come to the most important part of the discussion. A lot of people who might be waiting for this misconception sign. So what have gone wrong in terms of this concept nibbana. So I will talk a little bit of a few points, few misconceptions, and but professor should have a list of misconceptions too. So one of the misconceptions that we know about nibbana is that people think nibbana is a place. Nibbana is a kind of a place people need to go. So I think it's a misconception because it's a state of mind and it's not a place that one goes and then stop. And then the second is the ineffability of the words for Nibbana. So people get confused about. People think because of this confusion that because Nibbana has been explained in negative words, so that they think there is nothing, and they also think language. Uh, this is the extent that language could talk, but we say in the Buddhist teachings, language could have done something much more than that. Because when you talk about reality, language is not a good one of the best solutions. That's why the professor also delineated that it's because the language is not rich enough to talk about Nibbana. So, but we have to talk about what can go wrong when people don't understand when Nirvana is ineffable because they can't find proper words. And then what about when people when people are to think that because a lot of people do punyas and kusalas. Punya means merit and kusala is skillful activities. But I think in our understanding, when we refer to suttas, we understand that we supposed to do kusalas, skillful, wholesome activities. But do not, if people actually give up this kusala part of any activity, and they are more inclined to, and then they are more inclined to punya side. So punya is more likely uh, expecting good things in the future by doing this particular good karma. So let's say somebody offers dana and then expecting, may I be reborn in a heaven, may I have this much, that much. But the problem, professor, now we see in the teachings and especially in the dialogue with people is that people think that the words called kusala and punya, they are synonymous, they carry the same meaning. But looks like in the teachings that it's kind of a little different. So when people do any activity without loba dosa moha, it can certainly become a kusala. And then kusala also has the punyas, so people don't need to do punyas differently. But the problem in terms of nibbana is people think they want to do a lot of punyas merits to attain nibbana, so they largely ignore about the kusala side. So what you have to say about the people who do only punyas, maybe they don't understand the wholesome side, skillful side, kusala aspect of that particular karma, so they are continuing those meritorious things only just to attain nibbana. So we know that kusala is more close with nibbana, more uh, you know, it's highly with nibbana. So that's one thing. So what you have to say about those people? And we talked about this point too. How come there is no happiness that one can feel you know in nibbana? So people have some misconceptions. So finally, what do you think, like when we talk about nibbana, we have to see that how different people attain nibbana. Sometimes we see somebody goes to see the Buddha and listen to a Dhamma talk, and then at the end of the Dhamma talk, and that person attains nibbana. or Sotapan. But we also see sometimes Buddha was, walking on the street, and some scavengers, some people who were downgraded to be low caste people, or people without privileges, underprivileged people, they just see the Buddha and then they attain Nibbana. So looks like this whole phenomenon of becoming a Nibbana to different people is different. So if Nibbana is this kind of high goal, the highest goal, if it is a transformation of the mind, how come it applies to different individuals differently? Some people say maybe it's their past karma. Okay, if it is past karma, then people who can't attain nibbana by following a lot of books, a lot of dhamma talks on YouTube, Facebook, what's wrong with them? That means they haven't done enough good karma, good kusala, good punya. So basically, Professor, you can deal with a couple of questions. The first thing is, I expect an answer from you about what could be a good translation for chanda towards nibbana, because you said desire is not a good term for nibbana. And second is misconceptions. And yeah, so you have an answer, please.
Yes, this is of course, as mentioned about this. First of all, the punya and kusala, and these two, of course, is most of the people, um, actually the Buddhists, and they are really taking it in a rather mixed uh, way. That means they don't really understand about what is kusala and what is punya most of the time, and they are really engaged in punya, and they think that is kusala, and this punya and kusala there is no distinction. But in Buddhism it says really punya is a very important thing for our samsara. That is why in the Mahamangala Sutta also really mentions that Patirupadesa Vasocha Pubbecha Kata Punyata. Because in a good place, to be born in a good place, you have to have you should have collected punya in previous life, some that kind of a way. So that really says punya is for our samsara to be born in a good places and have a good life, and to be born in heavens. The punyas are important. Kusala is the very important factor that is mentioned in Buddhism, because this is what you really takes to Nibbana. Kusala means the skillfulness. Skillfulness is this. Now it has been explained in the Anumana Sutta also very nicely. Supposing someone who really think about himself, and if he really sees whether I am engaged in killing, so then he sees that and he is engaged in killing. So then he thinks, from today there are so many people engaged in killing. From today I am not engaged in killing anymore. So then he cultivates that is skillfulness. So that is what it really means, the kusala. The meaning of kusala also the skillfulness. So that really gives the strength for someone to reach into nibbana. So that really comes into the path to the nibbana. So that is what kusala. So that is the way we have to understand. Now offering. Normally people like to offer things. So when they offer, they always really think that according to the merits that they collect by offering, and they should be able to go to heaven and be born in the good life and in the heaven in good places. That is true. That is the normal thing. It happens with punya, with merits. But in offering also, it is really mentioned that when you offer something, that means part of your desire or lobha is eliminating. So then that is really helpful for you to attain into Nibbana, because in the Nibbana you really eliminating the lobha. So that is the kusala side there. So then we must really take into our mind that when we do some kind of a kusala, there is a punya attached to that. We should not have to wish for punya, but automatically it comes. But the important factor is to develop the kusala side and improve the kusala side, because that is what really important for our attaining into Nibbana. Then the other part, it has been mentioned that and ineffability, actually we have really talked about that why it is ineffable, because of the language problem as well as, and we cannot really explain the way that and what really we want to explain about the Nibbana. So that is that side. The other one, this has been really talks it why some people really like to the lightness and the chanda. Chanda means, of course, is something very important issue that has been discussed in Buddhism. We have to have, in order to do some kusala, we have to have chanda ourselves. Chanda is not really lower. It is kind of a, we like to accept it. We like it. And that is the chanda. But not really it is something to do with the desire. So in that case, chanda is, of course, is an important factor to do something, some kind of a kusala kamma, or that way when we do something good, and we have to have chanda there.
Okay, I think that speaks a lot. I mean, makes sense. Professor, these questions come from some lay people, you know, like when it comes to Nibbana, some lay people say that look, you know, I have a good family, I have a good wife, I have a good husband, I have kids, and I really love them, I really want to take care of them. But when I go to temple, when I hear Dhamma talks, when I watch them, um, you know, the monastics keep talking about Nibbana. We should be serious about Nibbana. We must be serious about Nibbana. And I also come across this term in the Dhamma books. So looks like that there is a kind of a compelling nature for people like lay people about Nibbana. And some lay people, they get really driven by this perception of accelerating the path into Nibbana. So they leave their wife, they leave their husband, and then they leave their children behind, and they are in a mess. I know this happens in Sri Lanka and many other places. So, but when we look at the Buddha's teachings, Buddha says taking care of your family is such an auspicious mangala factor. When you also in some other, especially what's that sutta called? Nakula Pita, Nakula Mata Sutta. We know that Buddha said, because Nakula Mata, Nakula Pita question in the Buddha, Bhante, we love each other so much. It's been 80 years, I guess 80 years of time that we've been marrying. We really like our marriage. Can we become the lovers as a couple in the next? Buddha said, yes, you could. You could. And then, so when these teachings are there in the sutta, in many suttas, uh, and also, you know, that Visakha was a Sotapanna person, but she was continuing her marriage life. And we know Isidatta, I guess, they were kind of like Sakadagami, but they continued with their life. So looks like that Buddha says that there is a happy married life, wherein which you should not bring Nibbana to sort of like, you know, uh, confuse your married life. So, but there could be people who want to be very serious about nibbana, so they say, I really want to make a choice. But I'm talking about the general normal crowd, people who go to temple, who listen to dhamma talks while keeping their families behind. So how, my question is, professor, is how can someone balance out their sensual life and uh, the teachings of nibbana? uh, I understand that people want a kind of a concrete answer, not like you need to take care of your family and you also need to listen to the Dhamma talks about Nibbana. Not that kind of answer, I guess, people are watching, people are expecting. I think we have to say that what kind of a sensuality should they practice in terms of Nibbana? So, what is your answer to the lay people who on one side want to keep the family, on one side keep to the Dhamma, especially with this Nibbana teaching, Professor?
This is a very important issue, of course, and the some people, of course, as Venerable mentioned, and they have really had the wrong view of keeping the family and thinking about the Nibbana. This, of course, in Buddhism, it really mentioned, explained, when you are a householder, keeping family, your wife and children, you have to look after them properly and feed them properly in a good way, in a good manner. And that has been not any way explained the other way, that and you have to leave your family behind and go to the forest, and that kind of a way that has been not explained. Anyway, this, of course, is really we must understand that any person who really look after their family very well, as well as, and he is looking after the family and keeping up, bringing up children in proper way, giving proper education and everything what they want and give, and for that, and they have to earn their financial position have to be in a good manner. So they have to earn money. So if they earn money in a good manner, not in wrong way, and keep the family also in a good way, and feed them properly, and give them the things what they want properly, and have the nice family life. So that really explains is something that he is doing himself for the uh, next world also, and again that person can, of course, it keep their family properly, as well as, and they can reach to nirvana also. How they can reach nirvana? Because when they have the family and they the sensual life, when they have in the family the sensual life, they are not really abusing anything. So then, of course, it's a proper way of that he is living in the family, and no problems he create in the family very much, and the not really wrong way that then he keeps the family. So that kind of a person easily can reach the nirvana later on, that is what we can understand. But if anyone getting serious about nirvana, of course, that may be a kind of a person and who has done everything his duties, and when he gets old, his children has become now big enough for them to look after the every matters in the family as well as the duties of the father and so on. Then of course that type of a person, elderly person, no problem about, and he can leave the family and become very serious about nirvana and engage in that kind of a spiritual way. So that is the kind of a thing that we have to mention, and not to really mix up the matter, because when you have to look after the family, you have to look after the family in good manner. Then it is of course is a no problem. And this has been of course is a really mentioned in one of the place. Now you know that Sakadevendra, the kings of the god, and the Saka, it says that, and when the Saka is going somewhere, when he is getting into the chariot, and before getting into chariot, he worship into the four directions, and every day he does it. Then the Matali, that is the driver, and he has seen this. One day he has asked, why you are really, before you getting into the chariot, and why you are worshipping, to whom you are worshipping. Then he mentioned that, and I am worshipping, there is the Gata, that means Yekahatta Punyakara uh, Silavanta Upasaka Dhammena Dare Posanti Tenam Santi Matani. So that means if any householder who is really collecting punya as well as silavanta, is really complete morals and engage in morality. And the upasaka, and upasaka is the one and who is really the one and who really keeps himself according to the in way of good manner, and he is called the upasaka in Buddhist terminology. And he really feed their family properly, and dhammena darang dare posanti. So he is really feeding the wife and children, the family, in a dharma way. Dharma way means the good way, good earning, and good way, not really abusing. So that is the kind of a person, to that person, that he was worshipped. So this is a very good place we can really mention about how a householder, the lay person, should behave in their family, and they can of course can really reach to nirvana without any problem later on.
Professor, I think you pointed out a very nice thing to think about. Like, in my question I was asking, adding on to what I asked, I was kind of wondering, like, on one side Buddha talks about the importance of having a family, taking care of family, wife, husband, children, and on the other hand, Buddha talks about Nibbana. It's pretty clear that for those who are very serious about it. And you also brought up that even the king of the gods, Sakka, Indra, he also respects the people who having a family, who take care of their families. But there's one thing I want to point out. How, what's the place where people can find out this balance? Now, as you brought up, I think when people want to experience panchakamas, shatkamas, sensuality, I think people abuse their kamas. And I would say, I mean, if I'm straightforward about this, I would say sexual abuse. And I think because when you talk about sensuality, it's more from this sexuality perspective. And lay people know that the third precept is about not misbehaving, especially when it comes to adultery, right? So it's more about a family matter. So I feel like one big factor in terms of the abuse in the sensuality is sexual abuse. So, and distortions, sexual distortions, also sensual distortions, some cravings about different things. So uh, I mean, before we move on to the questions of the people who are watching this, what okay, what do you think? Now, I also want to say that in many of the suttas, Buddha says people can experience sensual pleasures, but they should not be infatuated. The Pali word is agatito. They can experience, but they should not be infatuated. Agatito, amuchito, Adinava Dasavi, Nissaranapanyo. So they should have this wisdom called letting go every time they experience any sensuality, be that a man, be that your partners, be that your spouse, whoever. You should have this non-infatuation. So infatuation is a problem. If someone is too much into the pleasures, that means you can enjoy your pleasures starting from your married life, but where is the what do you call the interesting point one has to understand, I would say, regulator of sensuality. How, what can people use to regulate their sensuality in terms of happy married life and also nibbana path? So I think you can sort of like answer in a couple minutes.
Actually, that the Venerable, uh, when explaining that, of course, and you have really explained that the way that and how it should be, because in Buddhism, of course, explains uh, no matter that for a lay person is he is permitted to enjoy the five kinds of pleasures. That is why normally it, uh, it accepts the family life. So then family lives in sociology also that has been mentioned, family life, the regulation of the sexual matters, because it is important for a human being. So then it automatically regulates the when a person is getting into a family, the those sensual matters are regulating properly, no matter. But and some people, of course, they are going to abuse sometimes all these things. So that is not really allowed. I think the kamesu michachara. So the when this is explained, always it says that kamesu michachara means that you are really a married person should not really go with the other somebody and that kind of a way that it has been explained. Not only that, but within your family also, you should not abuse the sensual matters. So that is what really important, and for everybody to think about it, then only that they can have the proper happy family life, as well as that person is not getting wrong when he enjoys the the panchakama or five kinds of sensual way. So then that is the way that it really explains in Buddhism, because abusing is a very bad uh, bad way that he really try to enjoy his uh, sensual desire. No, that is not the way. That he must control himself. That is control part has been really explained everywhere. That's what I mentioned the sociological term also, because that is also really mentioned that regulation of the sexual matters is the one part of family, the importance of the family, benefit of family. So then this is the way that things have to have really explained in Buddhism also.
So, Professor, now it's time for questions from our live viewers. So, I will bring the questions to the screen. So, the first question someone asked was this question: if nirvana is the absence of desire, is it wrong to desire achieving nirvana? I think we sort of like discussed, but yeah, expect your answer.
Yes. Uh, yes, this way. Now, desire, of course, the word desire, of course, really has a kind of a bad kind of a sense. We should not desire for anything. So especially in achieving nirvana also we should not have to have the desire, of course, and we have to have a kind of a chanda, that is the proper term mentioned in Buddhism, chanda, of course, and we can uh, have some kind of it is not some kind, and we can have the wish to attain into nibbana. So then we can work it for. So there is no problem. But we should not really have to have the desire, means and really putting out everything and try to grab it and get it. This is the kind of a sense when you say that, use the word desire. So that cannot be really applied for nibbana. So in that case, it is no problem, for we have to have some kind of a wish to attain into Nibbana. Okay.
So the next question is, what does one do after they have achieved nirvana without desire? How does one guide their action? So, what does one do after, let's say, someone attains nibbana, and what is the nature of their actions? Do those actions bring any karmas? How does one guide their actions? So, I would say this is pertaining to Abhidhamma. We know in Abhidhamma there is one type of thoughts called kriya thoughts. So they don't bring any karmas. So Professor has an answer.
Yes, because in the it has been explained in Abhidhamma, and even the Arahants also worship the sometimes Buddha. Arahants also worship Buddha. Arahants also worship Bodhi. Arahants also do some kind of good karmas, good activities. Those good activities does not make a good karma, because to make a good karma there should be the roots of the alobha, adosa, amoha. Those kusala roots should be to become a karma, kusala karma. There should be roots. Those roots have been already eliminated by the Arahant. And that means the kusala roots as well as the akusala roots, of course, and both the roots have been really eliminated. So in that case, there are no roots to become a kusala. So he will not make any kusala karma by engage in the good activities. That is the way that it has been explained, and it has become, as the Venerable mentioned, by the term. The term is of those kiriya. Only it becomes a mere action without any results getting into later on giving any, because if we do any kind of a karma give the results, but here the karma is inactive, but there is no results. That is what the arahants activity has been explained in Abhidharma.
Um, the next question is Nirvana a type of a death?
This way. And now, actually, I really wanted to explain it at the beginning because we should not really think about that nirvana, we get nirvana or we enter nirvana after death. Because there is anyway that nirvana is divided in two different ways. That is, I will come later. But I mean, we should remember that this is not nirvana is not attained into afterlife. It is in this life you must attain into nibbana according to the Buddhist teachings. But the person who enters into nibbana has two kinds of way nibbana. That means the one is, I think the Venerable has explained at the very beginning, Sopansesa Nibbana. That means the Arahant is still living. So his Nibbana is called Sopansesa Nibbana. He is attaining into Nibbana with the Panchakanda because he is living. His body, physical body is there and mentality is active, but it doesn't give any results anyway. So that is the one which has been mentioned. So padisesa. So then anupadisesa. That means the when this arahant is died, arahant is dead. So then, of course, and that is called anupadisesa nibbana. That is what it really mentioned as real nibbana. Real nibbana means the if a arahant is living and still he is facing some kind of difficulties sometimes. Sometimes he does not get proper pindapata also. That is a kind of a suffering. There are so many sufferings. So in that case it is not mentioned as a proper nibbana, but anyway, that arahants also has to live until he dies. So that has been mentioned as a sopadsesa nibbana, but arahant's death, after the death of arahants, that is the real nibbana, and he is no more. That is what. So it does not mean arahant is living after the death. No, there is nothing, of course, exists after the death of arahants.
It's pretty clear. We have two more questions. This question is really interesting, Professor. Professor, and I know that you are good at, you're an expert in Buddhology. Like in the Buddhist teachings, we have these types of liberation. One can be an Arahant, one can be a Pacheka Buddha, one can be a full Buddha, Sambuddha. So, with that in mind, which type of liberation, Arahant, Pacheka Buddha, and Sambuddha, should I choose? I mean, this comes from a general person, like a normal birdling. What factors I should use to decide it?
Okay. Now it is a very important question, of course, is because normally it's mentioned that because this is the kind of a thing which normally when we uh, attend into when we are really attending to school times also. Now when we face our examination, we want to get the good pass and the middle type of a pass and the very low pass. So this is the kind of a desire some of the school children also have. Not only school children, the universities, when the young person attend into university classes also, he want to get the first class. Someone and someone just want to get the ordinary pass, and someone with just some kind of a pass that is enough. But here, of course, is the very important place has been kept here course, if someone is attaining into the Buddhahood. So then the Pacheka Buddhahood is a middle part. The Savaka, of course, is a it is though it is mentioned as a lower part, but Savaka is not really lower part. The Pacheka Buddha, of course, has some kind of a difficulties to teaching, because Samma Sambuddha can only realize the Nibbana and explain it in a conventional way. Samma Sambuddha had that skillfulness. So that is why we call him Samma Sambuddha. That is why we are really worshipping him, and we are offering him flowers and everything, and we praise him and we talks about him. That is because of, and he showed us the way, path of Nibbana. Pacheka Buddha could not really show that and could not teach. That is the Pacheka Buddha. That is why he gets that particular kind of designation, Pacheka Buddha. And Savaka, of course, is the one hearer. And Savakas, of course, there are some Savakas, even they could give a sermon like a Buddha. We know that, and there have been some of the Savakas, some of the monks, Arahants, and who really gives Buddha really kept the topic, and the Buddha went away to his chamber. Then after that, and monks really could not understand anything, and they have gone into the Punnamantani Buddha or some other kind of intelligent and Sariputta Thera and so on, and ultimately they get the proper discourse exactly the way that Buddha has taught it. So there are Savakas. So in that case, we cannot really say that Savaka's position is low, but Savaka normally is mentioned, Savaka is a hearer. And those who listen to the sermon of the Buddha and attain into enlightenment, that is the Savaka, that is the meaning of Savaka. Savaka is the hearer. Okay. That is, so now you can really think of, normally it's mentioned that you have to really wish the highest position. That means the Buddhahood. If you wish it and if you make effort it, then ultimately, if you are not really attaining into, of course, and if you put really right effort, then you can become a Buddha, no problem. And if supposing if you are failed to become a Buddha, you are definitely becoming Pacheka Buddha or either Savaka. So in that case, it is better to become put your wish to become Samma Sambuddha.
That makes me really, interesting to see that, you are a professor and you are marking, students' assignments and everything. And, like some students, they are writing, looking at expecting kind of a letter grade. May I get a B plus? May I get a C plus? But every student should uh, think that they should get the maximum marks. In case something goes wrong, they will end up in B plus or C plus, right? Not like you are planning for C plus, the minimum pass, right? So as you said, yes, we all should try to attain a Samma Sambuddha. In case this goes wrong, at least we will end up with a Pacheka Buddha, or in the very least, we will end up with an Arahant. So that's a really good answer. Okay, Professor. Um, so the last question that we have is kind of a partial question about the previous question. Do people who attain it cease to who attain Nibbana cease to exist? So, Professor, can you talk this question with the Pali sentence we understand by Nibbanti Dhira Yathayam Padipoint Ratana Sutta? We know that what can happen to an Arahant, and what is the nature of an Arahant, and you know that Arahants want to experience what will happen when they die with uh, the Sanya Veda Nirodha calls Nirodha Samapatti. So before they die, they want to see what could happen. What is this happiness like? That's why they want to, they want to do, they want to get into Nirodha Samapatti or Sanya Veda Nirodha. So with that in mind, you can sort of explain to us what is the real nature of an Arahant when that Arahant is uh, when that arahant passes away, and that means that arahant completes the second nibbana. The first one is sopadisa nibbana, that means attaining nibbana while arahant is alive, and when arahant passes away, that arahant completes the nibbana, the second type of nibbana. So then, what is the happiness? What will happen to them? What will happen to their energies? And also, why they want to feel what will happen to them when they pass away by tapping into Nirodha Samapatti or Sanya Vidata Nirodha. Yeah, this is the last question, Professor.
Okay, now first of all, I will answer for the what happens to arahants. The arahant, of course, and we really discuss all the way now, arahant completely eradicated the defilements. That is what we really say that in Pali, asavakkheya jnana. That means that when he really eliminated all the asavas, and asavas are the real roots of all the kleshas. So then there will be no kleshas within himself. Then, uh, then after the attaining into arahantship, as well as the death, attaining into the death. So the something of him, nothing exists, because it says that the simile, of course, is given as a fire. When the fire is blown up, so then you cannot really say where it is gone. We cannot really catch it. We cannot see it. We cannot know that and where to get, whether it is gone to this direction, that direction, or uh, anywhere. So, in the same way, when the Arahant really dies and nothing exists himself, nothing there, we cannot really talk about himself also. And this, of course, has been explained as a question, unanswered question by the Buddha also. It's mentioned there are 10 kind of questions. The last 4 is Hoti Tathagato Paramarana, whether the Tathagata means here the Arahant. Arahant is he is there after the death. Nahotita, he is not there after the death. He is and not he there after the death. Or he is not, nor and never exist after the death. So that is the kind of 4 questions which are irrelevant. So in that case, what we can say, and he is after uh, the question is, of course, is I don't know whether I have really wrong. Do people who attain it cease to exist? Yes, yes, they are ceasing exist. Yeah, they don't exist at all. Completely, they cease to exist. Okay, that because this question is also a little bit irrelevant. That as I just mentioned. Okay.
Professor, people asking some questions. They have, because they are trying to understand uh, the permanent bliss with a language that can be explained. So I think most of the questions that we talk about the nibbana, it could be kind of like irrelevant. But the thing is, like, we try to understand from a, at least we try to sort of get a sense of what it is. So that's the main plan. So dear viewers, we've been we've been planning for this discussion for 1 hour now. It's been almost 1 hour and 24 minutes. I know we can't stop when we keep discussing these interesting topics. And today, plus we've been talking the most important thing in the Buddhist teachings, Nibbana. So we can't just end up in 1 hour. So anyway, so I wanna ask one thing from Professor. Professor can take 1 minute. Professor, what do you have to say? Finally, about how do we prepare us towards nibbana, and what could be a common advice that you can offer to us in terms of attaining nibbana for people who are watching here? Should they be should they be should they be focusing on something in a different way about nibbana? Should they change sort of their perspective uh, that they have been doing in the past? Should they sort of focus on different Dhamma teachings? Do you have a sutta? So what advice you have to offer about this topic at the end?
Okay. Now, it is, of course, and all the way through our discussion, we have explained about how a person should behave in their life. This we are talking for the people, of course, mainly lay people, of course, is and the that means, and they should not really change. If they should change, if they are really not behaving in a proper manner, if they in their daily life, if they not behave in a proper manner, they should change themselves to the proper manner and behave themselves and look after their families properly and engage in the what you call the good work and good way. That is what it's called the kusala kamma also, as we mentioned. And anything what we really supposing if we offer something, at that time we must think about that, and this is to eliminate our lobha that we are offering. When you offer something to somebody and you do not really expect it back from them anything anyway, because normally people give something to somebody, then after that and he is expecting something from them, either sometimes good words also, and you are a very good person and to talk to other people and he is very good and he has given this kind of things also. Not really expect when you offer something to somebody, don't expect anything from him, you know. That makes really the your lobha, you eliminating your lobha like that. And so the when you are really offer, do the uh, family matters, engage in family matters, and that also you must do as your duty to the best of you can. You must do it, engage in giving them the things for your children. And again, for your children, some parents of course is really thinking that, and when I get old and they will look after me or something like that. If it is, don't think about that also. Not to think about anything about when you are giving something to your children, because it is their duty to look after you. If they don't look after, it's also that you have to accept it in such a way. Okay, this is the way that we can uh, achieve nirvana, and this is the way we should behave in nirvana.
What a valuable piece of advice. And I think basically, and most importantly, uh, we should not have this rewards mentality. When we do a good thing, never expect, even before executing that good thing, never expect anything in result. Just do it for the purpose of, for the sole purpose of eliminating raga, dosa, and moha. When it comes to the parents, and you brought up a very nice point, they should not mingle the duties with results in the future. Their duty is to take care of their parents, but the children's duty also is to take care of them. If they don't do that, they will take their karma. But basically, do any good karma without expectations. So that is the basic thing everybody can start doing if they really want to vision nibbana, because you will not get there, you will not get to nibbana if you have this rewards mentality. Please, get away from this rewards mentality. If you have rewards mentality, if you offer dana, if you offer food, if you are generous, never ever have the mentality of what can I get from this, politically, socially, whatever, educationally, in whatever the perspective, also from the future life. So what a great piece of advice, Professor. Thank you, Professor. And also I want to thank Professor as well, the viewers who've been watching. It's been an hour and a half. I hope that you all learned something. And at the same time, next episode 5, we've been doing now almost 4 episodes so far, starting from the first one. The next episode is going to be what is wisdom and how do we gain it. So in the Pali terms, I would say, what is panya and what are the different kind of panya, and how do we gain the panya, both secular and the spiritual, until we attain nibbana. So that's going to be our next topic, next Wednesday. And I want to thank again Professor Kariyawasam. You have a lot of things, you have a lot of academic works as well, but you've been contributing to us, especially for the purpose of uncovering this ancient knowledge of the Buddha, because these are sometimes hidden. People can find out some loosey, information on internet, but when they really want to know something really, precise, specific, they want to nail down the facts. They don't have that much of support. I think these kind of discussions will definitely, you know, uncloud, I would say, uncover their doubts about nibbana, especially at least from the secular point of view, and hopefully they will do whatever the good things and everything that we talked about to attain nibbana. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, viewers. You have a good night. Take care. Stay safe. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And also, finally, we want to add this too. May all the good karmas we've been doing help all of us to attain nibbana, because we've been talking nibbana today. Thank you, everybody.